In this video, I will show you 6 different ways to make hair scrunchies. You'll need fabric, an elastic band, a hair tie, or a hot glue. This first method is hand sewn. Measure 2 to 3 feet of fabric. The cutting doesn't have to be perfect as the fabric will be scrunched up later. Fold the fabric in half, then with a thread and needle, you will sew the edges together from one end to the other. Once you reach one end, turn the fabric around and sew it back to the beginning. I like to hand stitch the same edge 2 times to ensure that the stitches fully cover the fabric. Once the stitching is done, you will have a fabric tube. You don't want your stitching shown, so you should flip the fabric right side out. Next, you will need to slide your elastic through. It is easier if you have a safety pin as a guide through your fabric tube. Once the elastic reaches the other end of the fabric tube, cut the elastic band and knot it a couple of times. Tuck in the raw edges of the fabric and sew straight through to close up the ends of the fabric. Now you have your first scrunchie. If you don't have an elastic band but have a hair tie, it also works well for scrunchies. Use a bottle for support for this next method. Fold and touch the edges of the fabric and sew the edges together. It is easiest to work in small sections. Repeat until all the fabric is sewn. Once the hand sewing is done, it's time to flip the fabric right side out. Find the gap opening to the scrunchie. Tuck in the raw edge and sew the fabric opening close. Next method is with the sewing machine. Cut your fabric to your preferred length. Take a hairband and wrap the hairband in between the fabric. Fold the fabric in half widthwise. Use sewing pins or safety pins to keep the fabric in place and from unraveling. Remember, you can also use a bottle for support if this wrapping method is too clumsy for you. Wrap the fabric around the hairband and pin until the fabric edge is covered. After pinning, your next step is to sew. Turn the scrunchie as you sew all the way around until all the fabric is sewn. Then flip the fabric right side out. After you are done flipping, you are going to tuck in the raw edges and sew straight through. This method is my favorite because it's super easy to do. Fold your fabric in half with the right side of the fabric folding in. Go straight to the sewing machine and run the fabric straight down the edge of the fabric. If you cannot keep the fabric straight, you may want to use some pins to keep it in line. After you've sewn the fabric, it's time to flip the fabric right side out. Next, slide your elastic band through. Use a safety pin to help guide you through the fabric tube. Once the elastic band reaches the other end of the fabric tube, you can cut the elastic and knot it. If you don't know how to work the sewing machine or don't feel comfortable with a needle, then our last method involves a hot glue gun. Apply hot glue to one end of the fabric and press the other end together. Use a bottle to support. Slip over your hairband. Tuck in the width of the fabric under the hairband. Apply hot glue to one end of the fabric. Pinch the other end of the fabric together. Repeat until all the fabric edges are glued. The gluing method is not the best as it can get clumpy around edges, but it's okay to have a little imperfections. With this method, you do not need to flip the fabric inside out. So make sure the right side is showing on top. You will need to fold in the top as well as the bottom edges and apply the glue over the folded edges. Pinch the edges together. Cut your fabric to your preferred length. Fold the fabric right side of the fabric folding in. Take your glue gun and apply glue along the edge of the fabric. Work in small sections so the fabric doesn't dry up as you're working. Once the long edge is glued, flip the fabric right side out. Slip in the safety pin and the elastic band through the fabric tube. Once the elastic band reaches the other end, knot the elastic. Tuck in the raw edges and glue it over each other. Thank you for watching!